Hello! If you are watching this video, it's probably because you are trying to figure out what the heck is going on in League of Legends esports. Maybe you've been linked this by a friend who wants to explain it to you very quickly. You're a member of the media who has to write an article and you don't understand what the heck is going on, or maybe you just don't normally watch League of Legends esports. So we're going to explain it all really quick. So the LCS is North America's league for League of Legends teams. A lot of leagues going on here. And there are 10 teams that compete in this league. It's been happening for about 10 or 11 years now. And actually in 2018, everything changed. Previously, you could have teams qualify in and out of this league, but in 2018, Riot Games, who makes the game, sold 10 spots for $10 million to these different teams. So $100 million total. That's a lot of money, and in return, they got to be in it permanently, but one of the things they had to do was agree to also operate a minor league team. So they had to have an LCS team and then a team in the minor league, and the whole goal was to develop talent and make new players and rookies come up. Now, for many years after this, everything flourished. The grass was green, and birds were chirping, and venture capitalists came in and spent millions of dollars to get a piece of these teams, and traditional sports organizations even came in and created their own teams. And everyone expected this to be the next big thing. And because of that, teams also spent a lot of this money, in some cases millions of dollars, to hire great talent, oftentimes from other regions. And in fact, this created a lot of tension where people looked at North America and said, wow, it seems like there's not as many North American players that are playing. Instead, we're getting all of these players from other regions. They kind of dubbed them imports. Now, while some of these imports were big stars in their regions, we also got some big up-and-coming rookies who ended up being great talent for the league. But then we also got a lot of washed pros, or players that were probably not better than North American talent. I don't really know why, but oftentimes these import players would show up and they would even sometimes win MVP and then leave not even before the season was finished. Simultaneously, a lot of the teams started taking their commitments to the minor league less and less seriously, fielding teams and putting less resources into it. Thus, we arrive at last April, when sources began telling me that every LCS team had voted to request Riot remove the requirement to field minor league teams effective immediately. In fact, I heard this right before I did an interview with John Needham, the head of esports at Riot Games, and I was able to ask him about it. Here's what he said.
We actively support conversations like that because, again, we want to build a sustainable business with our teams.
Fast forward from the middle of April to the middle of May, when Riot announced they were going to actually go through with it. They lifted the requirement to field a minor league team, and overnight, a ton of players and staff lost their jobs in the middle of the season. Only 3 of the 10 teams decided to keep their rosters and their commitment to this league. And you know who this really pissed off is the Players Association, which is not a union, but is a collective group of the players in North America who compete. And it turns out, at least according to them, they had actually been pushing against something like this for many years and trying to stop efforts to remove this requirement. Not only were these players frustrated that many of their friends lost their jobs overnight and that the amount of jobs and opportunity in the space had decreased by roughly 50%, but they also felt frustrated that they did not have a seat at the table in these discussions, which is something that Riot had promised all the way back in 2017. Now, all of this led to the Players Association deciding to hold a vote on if they would stage a walkout for the very first day of LCS Summer Split, which is scheduled for June 1st. And ultimately, this vote did end up passing, which would mean that they would not be playing on opening day. At the same time, the Players Association listed 5 demands that they had of Riot Games, which I will put up here. And those demands have received various levels of praise and critique depending on who you talk to. Riot's reaction to all of this was to go to the 10 LCS organizations, not the players, but the orgs that they play for, and tell them, hey, you still have to field a roster on June 1st. If you don't, we will give you forfeits and fine you. And hilariously, this led to a really weird situation where suddenly all these organizations were scrambling to reach out to, in some cases, the very players that had been dropped from the minor league right beforehand and try to get them to play for them. Now, a lot of these players, including players even at the collegiate level, said that they would refuse to scab, essentially, for the Players Association out of solidarity with their cause. Many begin to speculate that you couldn't end up actually finding 50 players that met Riot's rank requirements to have a successful opening day of 10 teams playing against each other. And one intrepid, handsome man broke the news that Riot's response to all this was to lift the requirement, meaning that no matter what your rank was in League of Legends, you could go play in the LCS. This led to a lot of memes and just ridiculous funny jokes from everybody out there. 2 days before the start of the season, as all of this was starting to come to a head, Riot finally relented and said, hey, we're going to give this 2 weeks of pause. So the season is now starting 2 weeks later, and while Riot says they will meet with the Players Association, they've also said that they basically disagree with every single one of their demands and that all of them are unfeasible. And the biggest thing is that they've also said if they can't come to a compromise within those 2 weeks, that Riot will just cancel the whole summer split, ending the season and also preventing the LCS teams from having their spots at Worlds, which is the most coveted opportunity of any LCS pro because everybody wants to play at the biggest international event. Now, while there's not much analysis in this video, because I want to make it quick, one question that I've seen a lot that I do want to address is, hey, isn't this an issue between the players and the teams? Why are the players going and complaining to Riot about this? Well, it kind of is, but on the other hand, Riot is the operating body for the league. They were the ones that made the decision to remove the requirement. They didn't consult with the players, or at least the Players Association alleges that. And so that is why the players have decided to hold Riot accountable for all of this and try to get them to fix the situation in their eyes rather than going after the teams. That's everything. We're just going through the facts and timelines, so hopefully you get an understanding of at least the basics here. I've got some great videos on the channel where we talk about this in more depth and give some additional context and everything and my analysis and thoughts. If you aren't a subscriber of this channel, please do so. It really helps me out. And if you are already a subscriber, please consider hitting that join button below and becoming a member for just $2.99 so that I can make more independent coverage and videos like this. I guess we'll see what things happen as time develops.